Hello, my name is Keith, aka LoLByTheNumbers, and welcome to another 2014 League of Legends World Championship video analysis. Once again, this is a video analysis, not a shoutcast, so I expect that you have already watched the match, know who wins or doesn't care, as I will be providing plenty of spoilers throughout it due to analyzing the match. I'll be looking primarily at macro level play, looking at teams' compositions, their win conditions, how they do, don't, and should play to pull these off. I'll also be looking at individual lane matchups as well as item choices in individual play when it's apparent that these choices are very paramount to the win or loss of a team. This match we have Cloud9 against Kabum Esports. It is their first match in the group stages, so without further ado, let's go ahead and get into the picks and bans. On Cloud9's side, we see Kale, Maokai, and Kha'Zix being banned out. On Kabum Esports side, we see our generic Alistar Zillion, and we see the Zed ban that's pretty popular, especially against High. These bans are pretty targeted against Kabum. They're looking at the top laner. They know they have a lot of options on Ball's side. He can play Ryze, he can play Rumble, so they're not too worried. They ban out Kale and Maokai, who Lep likes to play. He's not too worried. He doesn't really play Rumble, and so Cloud9 know they have two options going into this, be it Ryze, be it Rumble, so they're not worried about the first pick. The Kha'Zix ban does allow Cloud9 to pick up Lee Sin as their first pick, and it really denies Danagorn. It forces him to pick up one of the weaker junglers in the World Championship right now, and he'll end up picking Jarvan. So this is a good use of Cloud9's pick and ban phase. It also leaves High open with several options. We see Syndra, Yasuo, and then we find out he does play Talon later on. Not in this match, but just in his champion pool. So they're not worried about High's champion pool with their first pick, but rather getting that strong jungler and denying Kabum. Kabum end up picking the Wife Steal lane, Thresh Lucian. Very strong lane. Lucian's a lane bully. Thresh is great at playmaking, at offering protection to his ADC. Thresh is just all around good. He's one of the strongest supports in the World Championship. On Cloud9's side, we see Ryze and Tristana picked up. I really like this Ryze pick. It's a great denial pick against Lep. Sort of forces him onto a weaker top laner. He doesn't play Rumble, so by picking Ryze, it denies Lep Ryze. And it's just good play by C9. It's also very late game scaling, and we're going to see a trend on Cloud9's team as they finish off their picks. Tristana is as well another strong pick for the late game. We see Tristana's getting beat down in the early game a lot. We'll see it this game as well. That's why she really falls out of favor as the World Championship goes on. On Kabum Esports side, our next picks are going to be Jarvan and Lulu. These are fallback picks for Kabum. They've been denied in the jungle, denied in the top lane, so they're just going for what they know how to play next, even if they aren't the strongest. We know top Lulus aren't having much success right now. They really have to be built in to protect the ADC Deathball composition, but we don't see that coming in from Kabum Esports, particularly with a Lucian pick. He's not one you want to run a Deathball with. The Jarvan pickup is pretty strong. It's good early lane. Has a lot of potentials. He does much better against immobile ADCs like Kog'Maw, Twitch, but he'll be fine in this match. It's a nice, decent pick. On Cloud9's side, we see Yasuo and Janna coming in. This gives Cloud9 a strong mid game with Yasuo Lee Sin synergy. It's always very successful. Janna pickup is also very generic. It helps out Yasuo. It provides good disengage for the team. It's just a strong support overall. And Janna Thresh is one of the support matchups in Worlds that we see a lot. And if one of them's not picked, it's usually the other that's winning the game. For the last pick on Kabum Esports side, we see Syndra coming in. This is a really solid pick. I like Syndra in most every situation. She provides good pick potential, good damage. She can be a lane bully. It's a little tough matchup going into Yasuo. Puts a lot of the kill potential onto Yasuo rather than Syndra. Syndra has to play a lot more defensively and really work around that wind wall of Yasuo. However, she should be safe. She can farm from a range, so it's a complete skill pick. On Kabum Esports side, that finishes out the rounds. So let's get into team compositions. And I'll talk about Cloud9's first of all, as it's fairly simple. Cloud9 are running a real late game hyperscale team. We all know Ryze scales extremely well, so does Tristana. Yasuo scales really well. He can split push. Against Kabum Esports team particularly, they have no answer to the Yasuo split push, so if Yasuo gets going, Cloud9 can easily send him into the side lane if they wanted to. It's also completely unnecessary, as Cloud9's team will be stronger in the late game. As long as they can survive to the 30-45 minute mark, Cloud9 will come out with the win. And there's a particular reason why they're building this late game team comp against Kabum in this first matchup for them in the group stages. Kabum being the weaker team significantly, and this being one of their first Worlds event, Cloud9 are assuming that they can take the late game. They can beat out Kabum in strategic play during the game, in team fighting ability, and in map control, and they are assuming correctly. Kabum grow a lot over the course of this tournament, and we see that when they fight Alliance. If you haven't watched that video, I really suggest it. It's my favorite. I have a ton to say. It's also the first one I did. But going back to this match in Cloud9's team composition, they're hyperscaling into the late game. So if they can reach the 30-minute mark, they'll win. This is going to be facilitated by Yasuo and Lee Sin. That combination provides a lot of strength in the mid game, and is a way that C9 can sort of shore up their weakness in the mid game. Tristana's going to hit a real bad power dip, and so is Ryze while he's in his monoscaling phase. They both have very weak mid games. So what Cloud9 need to do is they need to use Yasuo and Lee Sin moving together as a unit to make plays in either the side lanes, the mid lane, or the jungle, anywhere they really want to go. As a combination, they'll be much stronger against Jarvan and Syndra, as well as being much stronger against Lulu, who's fairly weak in the top lane against Ryze. So there's a huge benefit for C9 in this combo to carry them past their weak mid game. They should try and avoid most straight up 5v5 fights and look to get those picks in rotational mistakes. On Kabum's side, we see that they've picked a team with a lot of early game power. Thresh, Lucian are very strong. They're much stronger than Tristana, Janna. Lucian particularly is very good against Janna. His Q plus his passive shots will take out the Janna shield, preventing any AD bonus from her ADC. So that's a big benefit for Kabum's side. This means Thresh kind of has free reign to make all the moves in the duo lane. Any damage he gets off will be guaranteed, whereas Janna will be losing out on a lot since her shield's not going to last long enough for Tristana to make use of it. Aside from the early game power and the mid game power of the bot lane, Syndra's also very strong at level 6. She can essentially knock out a target even if she doesn't kill them, pushing them away. Lulu is strong in the mid game as well, providing good protection and CC for her team. The slows, the knock-up, and the shields are just all around good. This goes very well with Jarvan. Jarvan can dive in, get the Cataclysm. Lulu gets the knock-up and the slow. Lucian and Syndra are free to take out a target from range. Especially against Ryze and against Tristana, who have these real big power dips, Kabum can take control of the mid-game, and they should do so by looking for these dragon fights. As soon as level 6 hits for all their champions, it's going to be very much in their favor to be looking to control Dragon, get those pinks out, get the vision control, snowball a win from Dragon Gold, from Objective Gold. If they can get two or three dragons while staying even in the lanes, then they can start to transitioning that gold advantage into tower kills. They can be looking to move as 5 into the mid lane of C9 in particular, as they have very bad wave clear. Their only wave clear is going to be coming from Tristana and Yasuo when they get their static shivs. Even then, that's not very strong wave clear. Kabum can easily whittle down turrets and just keep as a 5-man composition until C9 try and engage. When C9 try and engage, they can respond with their stronger mid-game team and look to bully C9 out that way. So that's the match for Kabum. If they can get this early game power going, get themselves an advantage, move into the mid game, they can snowball the win, and they have to snowball the win. Essentially, Kabum are on a timer. That timer is going to be about 30-35 minutes. If they haven't won or haven't created themselves about a 10,000 gold lead by that point, they're going to start falling behind, and C9 will take control. So that's going to be your game. It doesn't quite work out that way. If you've watched the match, you know C9 get ahead in the lanes. They get control, particularly on Yasuo. They don't particularly respect Kabum in terms of their item bias, but they're respecting Kabum in a certain way. They know that Kabum are strong players, so what C9 have done with their team composition is they're opting into sort of almost like a guaranteed win. They feel that they're much stronger in team fights they're much stronger in play as a team. They feel that they can out-rotate Kabum on the map. So Cloud9 are actually looking to use their experience to draw them into a win rather than their team composition. As long as C9 don't lose out the game by the 30-minute mark, then they'll take the win, and that's what their team is opting into. They're saying, hey Kabum, we respect your early game, but we realize that you're going to have a weaker mid-game and late game just by shot calling and strategy. And this is a particular reason why Cloud9 win this game. If they had been fighting a better team with these team compositions, then Cloud9 probably would have lost this match. Particularly with the items they do end up buying. I'll make a note of how these lanes transitioned. I really like that C9 went top with their duo lane. They really needed to. Tristana Janna would be very weak against Lucian Thresh. Kabum should have put more emphasis on finding this 2v1 lane. Lulu Thresh are doing fine. In fact, they almost get kills onto Sneaky a couple times. They do some good trades. But the real problem becomes that they're not denying Tristana here. Tristana really needed to be denied, and if Lucian Thresh had gotten the 2v2 lane, it would have been much stronger. This also would have allowed Lulu to bully Ryze a bit more, pushing him into his tower. Lucian can't really fight or stop Ryze. They just go pretty even in the lane. The only reason Ryze is down in CS to Lucian is because Ryze was late to lane, assuming since they were planning the 2v1, he was in the jungle helping out Lee Sin. The other thing that this does is, because they go for the 2v1, Ryze gets better item opportunities. He picks up a Mana Crystal at the start like he normally does, but when he's going through the jungle with Lee Sin, by the time they're done, he can pick up Tear of the Goddess and then go to the 2v1 lane or the 1v1 against the ADC and start scaling. So it really allows him to reach that Tear of the Goddess quickly. So that's the situation. Kabum also messed up the freeze on the bottom lane. They weren't necessarily expecting C9 to do the 2v1 swaps. It's just an experience thing. Lucian ends up pushing the wave into the turret, and this allows Ryze to move up and get EXP. If Lucian hadn't pushed the wave into the turret and rather had done a freeze, he would have had the level advantage and the positional advantage over Ryze when Ryze came into the bottom lane and would have been able to deny him some CS. Thresh going top for Kabum was really good, since they are the 2v1 and Lulu is a ranged mage. Having support in top laner works out pretty well. Tristana's once again not really a bully. Lulu's a much stronger bully. So Lulu and Thresh actually do pretty well against Tristana Janna, and we saw that happening. One thing to note here is Tristana and Yasuo have both picked up the gold generating Avarice Blade. This is a bit of a disrespect play, and will you see it coming to bite C9 in the butt? They have no business being in this 2v2 lane right now. Lucian has 2 levels over Tristana and Janna. He has the BF sword to an Avarice Blade. Tristana and Janna can't respond to anything in this lane, and it's because Tristana picks up that Avarice Blade. If she had picked up a pickaxe, they could have fought a little bit better. It wouldn't have been so weak. If C9 were fighting the likes of Imp and Mata with this deficit in this build, they would have absolutely got destroyed. Still, Kabum do a good job, and we'll see a very large advantage going into Lucian's favor. In the mid lane, the pickup of the Avarice Blade is fine. Yasuo is not really going to look to fight Syndra yet. And the gold generation is very useful, considering Yasuo would just be going for a Zeal otherwise. Either Zeal or Avarice Blade pickup is pretty similar. Though if you're fighting more of a mid lane matchup, or a match that you're going to be looking to actually fight instead of avoid, you'll probably want to pick up that Zeal first. So we're going to have a pretty slow game for now. This is the point where Kabum really want to be looking for dragons, and Jarvan's already on it. It's really good. They just shoved Tristana back. Now it's the perfect opportunity. They have, like I said before, a much stronger mid-game power spike, and this is just bad play, a little bit of nerves or experience. Thresh isn't standing in front of the Lee Sin to block his Q. And this comes to bite Kabum in the butt because Meteos goes for the steal and gets it. If Thresh had simply been blocking for that Q, it would have denied C9 the dragon, and this would have given Kabum a nice little lead. Instead, they trade dragon for first blood. So just a little bit of a misplay, but Kabum were properly using their composition and their strength in the mid game, especially after pushing out Tristana, to open up the dragon, which is what they need for their win condition to generate a gold lead for the mid-game power. I want to point out one thing up top. That little fight that Lulu had with Ryze. Lulu was standing in the middle of all the creeps, which meant she got really hit heavy by Ryze's splash damage. Just something to note. Always try and be off to the side of your creep waves against Ryze. Don't be in the center where you're going to take that splash damage. Other than that, if we look at the matches, Kabum are winning in every single lane. And they're winning by quite a significant amount. Top lane, not so much. A couple CS. Jarvan's the one who's behind, but Syndra's up by 20 CS. Lucian's up by about 20. It's just a really big advantage. If it wasn't for that dragon, Kabum would, instead of being behind, would have been ahead by maybe a good 2,000 gold. Here's where we're going to start seeing things change. I like that Jarvan has come for this gank. I really think he should come back to it really soon. And I think he does, if I remember correctly. I would have preferred to see Jarvan making ganks earlier. It took him a long while to make them, particularly against Ryze and against Janna. That way, the moment he hit 6, he could have been down into one of the lanes for the pressure. And particularly on this bottom lane, Lucian has huge power now, especially with the pickaxe and with the BF sword. Kabum's bottom lane should be pushing against Tristana all the time, always looking for the fight. Lucian just has to walk up, get his Q, get his passive, just save his dash for Janna's knockback, or knock-up on her Q. He doesn't even really need to do that, because it's not that deadly of a CC. So things are going well right now. We see Kabum is taking the bottom turret. There's just so much pressure coming from this bottom lane that Kabum should be able to snowball this everywhere else in the match. Now that this bottom turret is down, Kabum would have two choices. They can continue to use this strength and push. They've got some good wards out. They can see when Yasuo and Lee Sin are moving down. Now at the moment they see it, they take off. They take a little bit long to disappear, unfortunately, and it does end up hurting them. Kabum really shouldn't have turned around on this one. They were in a 4v3. Thresh did get the nice hook into Jarvan. However, because it's a 4v3, it really hurts them. And that's technically all there is to say about that. Kabum saw an opportunity for a kill, but didn't respect the fact that they were outnumbered. Yasuo is able to capitalize on Janna's Q, and from there we see 2 kills going to C9 side. Lulu in the top lane tries to stop Ryze from the teleport, but it does end up getting her killed, and we'll see that right here. One of the reasons why Lulu dies is, if you look back closely, she runs forward a little bit too much. As soon as she gets off that W and the E, she should have taken steps back and then used her glitter lance from farther away. She just walks a little too far forward, and it comes back to bite her in the butt. It was a good job denying the teleport, though. So Cloud9 have gone ahead, are ahead in gold, primarily just because they're better strategically, and they're better at the team fights. Tristana and Yasuo both have their static shivs. This means that they can provide wave clear in the middle. Still not that much, and I'd love to see Kabum start to pressure a turret. With how strong Lucian is ahead right now, they can probably just rush down this middle turret while Tristana and Janna are bottom. And this should be the play that they make. As soon as they take out this middle turret, they should start setting up for Dragon. And appropriately, Kabum are taking out the turret. In fact, they can even go for this second one, and that would be a great play. Kabum know what they're doing. They know how to take advantages, and they know these movements to make. Where they're really falling out is in rotations and in vision control, and just a couple minor mistake choices, like not blocking the dragon, like fighting a 3v4 instead of just backing up and being safe and waiting for a better opportunity. In terms of items, I'm not a big fan of Jarvan having picked up this Sightstone. I think since they are a team with a lot of mid-game power, they should have continued to push this mid-game power ability, gone for that Spirit of the Ancient Golem. It would have given... He's losing out on a lot of gold generation by not having this item. He's losing out on some tanky stats. Even if he didn't want to go for that, he could have, instead of this Sightstone, picked up a Giant's Belt and a Warden's Mail. Gotten something that makes him not feel so much like paper in a fight. Sometimes getting a Sightstone on certain champions is really good, especially when you're looking for picks and catches in the jungle, but that's not what Kabum's team is. That's not where their strength is lying. One or two wards onto Jarvan instead of this Sightstone would have really let them push harder and take the fight to C9. Instead, even with this Sightstones, even with these wards, C9 are still finding the picks because they are the more experienced team, and they know how to find them, create them through rotations, and just take the opportunity. So if Jarvan had say, Spirit of the Ancient Golem earlier, he could have had a little bit more money, potentially a Chain Vest as well. This really would have helped. Kabum could have taken the fight to Cloud9. And maybe it's because they're behind in kills that they're a little afraid. It's one of their first times on such a big stage as well, that they're not properly pushing. They feel like all their lanes have lost, except for bottom, and they really should be snowballing with this bottom lane. It's a little bit late right now, as Tristana has now got her BF Blade, as Ryze is moving in his Rod of Ages to scale up. Kabum should have been making moves earlier. Like I said, the moment they all hit 6, take the dragon. They did do that properly, but then they should have started moving into turret pressure. With the 40 CS lead that Lucian had at one time over Tristana when he was running BF Sword Pickaxe against Avarice Blade Zeal, there was a great opportunity for Kabum to take turrets. They could have even just ran down middle lane as 4 and potentially taken out the tier 2 turret in the mid lane. Their other option was just to do very fast rotations. After that bottom turret goes down, go to the mid turret, take the mid turret out, move to the top turret, then move to tier 2 turrets. Just keep going non-stop, and we'll see Kabum learn this and pull this off in their game against Alliance, their second match. So we really get to see Kabum evolve throughout this World Championship. So right now, Kabum are kind of in quite a bit of trouble. They've been losing out in fights, even though they have a stronger mid-game team. They've taken the outer turrets, and so they're kind of running themselves out of options. They should have been going earlier against the tier 2 turrets, as I've already said. Right now, there's just not too much that they can do. I still would suggest that they group up as 5 and try and poke down turrets. It's going to be a little harder against the double static shivs and the fact that C9 just team fight better. With Jarvan being so weak right now, he's kind of like paper, so it makes the team fights hard. But their best option for Kabum is still going to be grouping up and pushing as 5. Particularly, the strongest chance they have right now is as 5, push down the middle, and then move into the bottom jungle of Cloud9. Get lots of wards, take out their vision, and then constantly rotate between mid turret and bottom turret. Mid turret, bottom turret, back and forth, back and forth. Force C9 to move into them and use Syndra and Thresh to get picks in the rotations of Cloud9. However, this requires a pretty experienced team, and Kabum just aren't there yet. But it is the proper play. With the pick potential that they have, and with the mid-game power, they could easily control the bottom jungle of Cloud9 and slowly take one of the 2 turrets. If they get the bottom turret, they can then move into doing the same with the top side of C9's jungle. If they get the middle turret, they can completely focus on bottom after that. Taking out that mid turret would give them the opportunity for deeper wards, better movements. They could have pressured the inhibitor turret and then moved down to the bottom T2 turret when their creeps were there. This is the kind of plays you have to make when you have pick potential on your team, when you have a strong mid-game power spike. You have to make the plays, and you can't let the other team dictate it. Unfortunately for Kabum, we do see Cloud9 are rotating better. They are playing the macro level map movement strategy much better. And it's getting them to scale into this late game. They're really getting there early. We see Tristana has her Infinity Edge now. She's running on 2 items. We see Ryze has completed both his mana items. Archangel's Scepter is up. Rod of Ages is stacking pretty high now. He's getting to a real scary point as well. An interesting thing to note is we see a lot of defenses coming out of Lee Sin and out of Yasuo in this game. Yasuo is actually going to build a Guardian Angel before he finishes his Blade of the Rune King. And in a sense, this is kind of a respect pickup. Once again, by picking the Guardian Angel, what it does for C9 is it allows them to delay. It doesn't give them playmaking ability necessarily so, and it doesn't mean that Yasuo can split push any better. It just means that Cloud9 are less likely to give gold over to Kabum. And since Cloud9 team scales so hard, that any type of delay for them is a benefit. So the early Guardian Angel pickup is a future potential buy rather than a now potential buy. It's offering power to C9's late game and their ability to get there rather than creating power for them right now. Over on Kabum's side, we see that Syndra has picked up a Deathfire's Grasp. I kind of do and kind of don't like this pickup. It's great for picks if she can get her stun off into her burst combo, especially if Thresh and Lucian are there to provide extra CC and damage. It does mean that she doesn't have as much wave clear or push potential. With Kabum's team having such a strong mid game, I probably would have preferred to have seen an Athene's first. That would allow her to constantly spam C9 under turret. I would have gone into the push potential of Kabum rather than in the pick snipe potential. Still, it's not a bad pickup, and there's plenty of opportunities for her to have been able to use it if Kabum were playing the pick game by controlling the jungle of C9. Once again, just want to make the note to look at the Jarvan. This sight zone has really delayed him. He's behind in CS of Lee Sin, a good almost 30, so about 25. And he's almost like paper against this Tristana. There's no armor. Yasuo and Tristana are really easily going to be able to kill Jarvan when he goes in. Let's see. So I'll talk a little bit about individual matchups. We'll talk about top lane Lulu versus Ryze. It's a really even matchup and it turns into a really big farm lane. Neither one should have kill potential on each other without the other one making a mistake. Lulu has the slow and the shield to prevent Ryze damage as well as being able to just speed herself away. Ryze wins all-ins and trades, so Lulu will want to avoid them. This matchup is kind of in Lulu's hands, but not really that she's controlling it, but that she's the one who has to make sure that this lane stays even. Lulu's best ability is going to be just fast pushing against Ryze, using her Q to clear waves and trying to hit Ryze with the splash damage. If Lulu is able to get a solid Q on the wave and wait for her second one, she can push the wave into Ryze's tower and try and deny him CS that way. Also, the more Ryze is pushed, the more likely that Lulu is going to be able to hit her Qs through creeps, as well as hitting him with her shield. It doesn't deny Ryze all that much, but it keeps Lulu safe while still doing something to deny Ryze. It allows her to get some damage onto the turret. If she's able to take the top turret before Ryze, this is a big advantage for her. Or rather for her team. The other option is she can let Ryze push, but this kind of gives away that they're looking for the top lane gank. Jarvan comes in with Lulu following up. It's a good opportunity for them to kill Ryze if Ryze is pushed against Kabum's turret. But like I said, not being aggressive with Lulu in the top lane really gives away what your plan is with your jungler. In the mid lane, Syndra versus Yasuo. This is a highly skilled matchup. A lot more outplay is on Yasuo's side, particularly because his wind wall is able to block out a huge amount of Syndra's damage as well as her entire ult if used properly. During levels 1 through 5, the pressure is on Syndra's side. She's able to harass Yasuo from a range. When he tries to dash into her, she can knock him back. She has stuns. She has all the harassment potential against Yasuo and should really be looking to bully him. Once level 6 comes into play is where things really get difficult for Syndra. If Yasuo is ever able to hit his knock-up onto Syndra, he can go in with his ult, back off in one direction, throw up his wind wall, and block out all of Syndra's ultimate, denying her massive amounts of damage. The other thing that Yasuo has going for him in this matchup is even if he gets stunned by Syndra, if Syndra uses her ultimate, by the time the stun wears off, Yasuo can throw out his wind wall and it will block at least part of Syndra's ultimate, as the animation is quite long. Especially with the pickup of Merc Treads, it removes how long it denies damage to Syndra simply because he's able to pull out his wind wall quicker. So just take note when you're playing Yasuo, if you're ever playing into Syndra, Merc Treads allows you to come up quicker from the stun, gives you MR, and reduces the damage from Syndra's ultimate because you're going to block out more attacks. In the bot lane matchup, Tristana and Janna versus Lucian Thresh. As I mentioned before, it's really in Lucian and Thresh's favor. Lucian's able to easily knock out Janna's shield, preventing a lot of her power for her ADC in the early game. Tristana doesn't benefit from AD in terms of skills, so everything is going into Lucian's favor with a much higher burst damage with the Thresh, who has the CC and who can support him just through more damage than Janna can put out. And we did see it that this game there was a big advantage going into Kabum, especially once they picked up the PF sword and pickaxe. So what could Kabum have done in this game? They played the early game pretty well, and they got an advantage in top and in bottom lane. They could have played the Lucian Thresh lane a little bit better in bot lane, more aggressive, had Jarvan show up there more often, really put the hurt into C9 by going to Kabum's strongest lane, by feeding this Lucian and getting him so far ahead of Tristana. They could have transitioned this power in the bot lane across the map, especially because Thresh and Syndra both have pick potentials. Kabum could have sat at C9's turrets, whittled them down, and prevented C9 from being able to respond. The big thing that goes with this is that C9 has no real reliable wave clear. With two melee champions and Tristana who's not Corki essentially, there's no real good option for C9 to defend their turrets. Lucian could get in with his pot shots, easily turn this into an advantage. Kabum could have moved from bottom T1 to middle to top, then moved on to the tier 2 turrets and never stopped letting up pressure. This is what Kabum should have done. They really had to keep the pressure on C9 the entire game. This also goes into that Kabum should have really looked for that 2v2 lane from the start. They could have kept Tristana down even more. I really think a lot of the win condition for Kabum relied on this bot lane getting ahead and being able to snowball that lead across the map. I forget what match we saw this happen in, and I'll try and think of it as we're waiting on, but there is another match that I've already covered in which we see Tristana Janna fighting a Lucian Nami, I think it is, and the Lucian Nami absolutely destroy Tristana Janna and then transition that lead across the entire map. I think it's one of the Starhorn Royal Club games. Look through the notes for just Tristana Janna on a Lucian Nami from one of the group stage ones if you want to find it. And that's how you transition a huge lead in the bot lane across the map. That game's a great example of it, and it's what they could have done here. You just never stop. You get that solid lead, and you go one to the next, to the next, to the next. Unfortunately, Kabum didn't do this, and this has allowed C9 to reach their hyperscaling portions. We saw them hitting it around the 25-minute map mark because they were able to get dragons that they shouldn't have, and they were able to win fights and kills as apparent by the kill lead. So now they're essentially unstoppable, and they've been unstoppable for a while. They've delayed long enough to get into this hyperscale point, and now C9 are simply going to push for the win. Once again, just to note, Mikhails is picked up by Janna. This is really good. This is something we see occurring a lot during the group stage 2 and groups C and D. We don't see a lot of the Magi's getting picked up. The supports have learned by paying attention to the first stage of groups. So that's the match. I hope it was informative. I hope you were at least able to recognize where Kabum had their power and what they should have done with it. Once again, find that match where it's Tristana Janna versus Lucian Nami, and then you can really see how to transition a lead in the bot lane to a lead across the map. As always, the notes for this match can be found below, as well as a link to the portal page for all of my 2014 League of Legends World Championship video analysis. I'm Keith, aka LoLByTheNumbers, and thanks for watching.